The little girl's hands were shaking so badly that the folded papers slipped from her grip and scattered across the polished marble floor. Gasps rippled through the crowd. She dropped to her knees instantly, scrambling to gather them, her dark curls falling over her face as tears splashed onto the shining surface. Around her stood a circle of well-dressed adults, men in tailored suits, women with handbags worth more than her entire life, watching in cold silence. At the center of it all stood her. The woman in the ivory power suit. The CEO, white, cold-eyed, untouchable, she looked down at the trembling black girl as though she were something unpleasant stuck to the bottom of her shoe. "Get up," the CEO said sharply. "You're causing a scene." The girl's fingers fumbled over the papers, bank documents, funding requests, handwritten medical records, each one now marked with smudges of dirt and tears. I'm sorry," the girl whispered, her voice cracked. "I just needed 1 minute, ma'am." "Just one? I said get up," the woman snapped louder now. "Security!" The word security sent a wave of fear through the girl's frail body. Her eyes shot toward the 2 large guards standing near the glass doors. They had already begun moving. The crowd parted easily for them. "No, please," the girl cried, clutching the papers to her chest as she stood. "I didn't mean to make trouble. I just need someone to listen. My mother is dying." The CEO laughed, not loudly, not cruelly, worsely. She laughed softly, dismissively, as if she had just heard the most ridiculous joke in the world. "Do you think I became the head of a billion-dollar corporation by listening to sob stories?" she asked calmly. "You and your people always think emotion will get you further than effort." The words hit like a slap. The girl flinched. Around them, dozens of people watched. Some looked uncomfortable, some whispered, most looked away. No one stepped forward. The girl's lower lip trembled as she lifted one of the papers with shaking fingers. My father invested in your company," she said quietly. "He passed away last year. These papers, he said they would protect us. He said if anything ever happened, you would help us." The CEO's eyes flicked briefly to the paper. Then she scoffed. "Do you have any idea how many people claim that?" she replied. "Every poor family that walks through that door thinks they're entitled to my time. You should be grateful you were even allowed inside." The girl swallowed. "My mother needs surgery," she whispered. "We sold our furniture, we sold our car, we sold everything. The hospital said without the payment they won't operate. I just need you to look at the documents. Just 5 minutes, please." Silence fell thick over the lobby. The guards stopped just a few feet away. The CEO stepped closer to the girl now. Her heels clicked against the marble with deliberate authority. "See," she said quietly, her voice ice cold, "this is exactly why people like you never rise. You beg instead of building, you cry instead of working, and then you blame the world for your failures." Tears streamed freely down the girl's face now. "I go to school every morning," she said through sobs. "I work at night. I take care of my brother. My mother can't walk anymore. I only came because my father believed in your company. He said you were honest." That word, honest, made the CEO's jaw tighten. Her eyes hardened. "Your father was a nobody," she said sharply. "If he were important, I'd remember him." The girl's knees buckled, but before she could fall again, one of the guards grabbed her arm roughly and yanked her upright. "Time to go," the guard muttered. Her papers slipped again. The girl cried out as the guard dragged her toward the door. "Please," she screamed. "Please don't throw me out. My mother will die." Her cry echoed through the glass and steel lobby. Still, no one moved. No one spoke. No one helped. The CEO turned her back as if the matter were already finished. "Next time," she said over her shoulder, "learn where you belong." The guard pulled harder. The girl's shoes scraped against the floor as she struggled weakly. Then a calm, steady voice cut through the chaos. "Let her go." Every head turned. The guards hesitated. The CEO froze mid-step. From the far end of the lobby, a tall figure emerged slowly from the shadows near the conference wing. A woman in a navy blue coat, her silver hair pulled neatly back, her eyes sharp with quiet authority. She walked forward with unhurried steps. The guards scoffed. "Ma'am, this is private property." "I said," the stranger repeated, her voice unshaken. "Let her go." Something in her tone made his grip loosen. The girl stumbled free and collapsed to her knees again, shaking. The stranger went to her instantly, kneeling beside her and wrapping both arms around her trembling body. "You're safe now," the woman whispered gently. "You hear me? You're safe." For the first time since entering that building, the girl felt someone's warmth. She sobbed uncontrollably into the woman's shoulder. The CEO turned slowly, her expression dark. "Who do you think you are?" she demanded. "You're interrupting an executive matter." The stranger rose calmly and faced the CEO eye to eye. "I am someone who does not tolerate cruelty," she replied. The CEO's lips curled into a thin smile. "Then you're in the wrong place," she said coolly. This company isn't powered by sympathy. The stranger glanced down at the girl, then back up. No, she said softly. It's powered by stolen promises. A murmur moved through the crowd. The CEO's smile vanished. What did you just say? Before the stranger could answer, a man standing in the crowd whispered in horror, "Oh my God, that's her." Another voice followed. It can't be, the CEO frowned. What are you all staring at? The stranger took one step forward. You refused to shake the hand of a black investor yesterday, she said quietly. The CEO stiffened. The girl looked up sharply. The stranger's eyes burned into the CEO's. That investor, the woman continued, was this child's mother. The lobby exploded with gasps. The CEO's face went pale. But little did the cruel woman know, the narrator's voice deepened, that in just 24 hours she would be brought to her knees, begging for a meeting with the very family she had just destroyed. The stranger's lips curved into a slow, dangerous smile. And you're about to find out, she said. Let's go back to how this story truly began this morning. The sun had barely risen over the rusted rooftops of East Haven when 14-year-old Amara Johnson opened her eyes to another day of quiet struggle. Her alarm clock had stopped working months ago. Instead, she woke up every morning to the sound of her baby brother coughing. The room was barely large enough for 2 beds and a narrow path between them. The paint on the walls was cracked and peeling, stained with years of damp winters and leaking pipes. A single window let in a thin strip of early morning light, slicing across the floor like a tired promise. Amara pushed herself up slowly from her thin mattress on the floor. Her brother, Leo, only 3 years old, lay curled beside their mother on the bed. His small chest rose and fell unevenly, each breath shallow and strained. Amara's heart clenched. She slipped quietly to her feet and padded across the cold floor, placing her hand gently on her mother's forehead. It was burning. Again. Mama. Amara whispered. Her mother, Renee Johnson, stirred faintly. Her eyelids fluttered open, heavy with pain and exhaustion. Amara, Renee murmured weakly. Is it morning already? Yes, Mama, Amara said softly. You need to rest. I'll make some tea. Renee tried to sit up but winced in pain and fell back against the pillow. Don't be late for school, she said. You already missed too many days last month. Amara forced a smile. I'll be on time, she promised. But both of them knew that was a lie. Their tiny kitchen held almost nothing. 1 pot, 1 pan, 2 cracked cups, a loaf of bread hard as stone, and half a bag of rice that Amara rationed carefully each day. She lit the old stove with a match, praying silently that the gas wouldn't shut off again. As water warmed, her eyes drifted to the framed photograph taped crookedly on the wall. Her father, Daniel Johnson. A tall black man with kind eyes and a smile that looked like it had once held the whole world together. He had died 1 year earlier. A sudden construction collapse. No warning, no compensation, no justice, only debt, only silence, and only the weight of an impossible responsibility dropped onto a 13-year-old girl overnight. Her father had believed in dreams. He worked 2 jobs, cleaned offices at night, saved every dollar he could, and before he died, he invested, not in land. Not in gold, but in a company he called the Future. A company run by a woman he trusted. A company whose lobby Amara would step into today. A company whose CEO would humiliate her before the world. But this morning, Amara didn't know that yet. All she knew was that her mother was dying. Renee had been sick for months. At first, it was just fatigue, then the fainting spells, then the pain. Finally, the diagnosis arrived like a death sentence: advanced heart disease. Emergency surgery required. The hospital demanded a payment of $48,000 up front. They were given 3 days. That was yesterday. They now had 1 day left. When Amara returned to the bedroom with the tea, Renee was coughing violently into a cloth. Mama, please slow down, Amara cried, holding the cup to her lips. Renee sipped weakly. Did the hospital call again? She asked. Amara hesitated. Yes, she whispered. They said if we don't bring the money by tomorrow morning. Her voice broke. They won't operate. Renee closed her eyes. So that's it, she said quietly. My time is up. No, Amara cried. No, Mama, you can't say that. I'll fix this, I promise. Renee reached for her daughter's trembling hand. Baby, she whispered, you've already given your childhood to this family. I won't let you give your soul too. Amara shook her head violently. I'm not afraid, she said. Daddy wouldn't give up, and I won't either. She ran to the drawer and pulled out the worn envelope. Inside were the documents, investment records, share certificates, contracts, everything her father had left behind. She clutched them to her chest like armor. I'm going to that company today, she said firmly. The one Daddy believed in, the one he said would protect us. Renee struggled to sit up. Amara, no, they won't listen to a child. They will, Amara insisted. They have to. Renee looked at her daughter's thin arms, her tired eyes, her borrowed school uniform. Promise me one thing, she whispered. Whatever happens today, don't let them break you. Amara nodded, tears streaming. I already broke once, she said softly. I'm not made of glass anymore. Amara dressed Leo for daycare using clothes donated by a neighbor 2 buildings over. She braided her own hair quickly, hands shaking. She skipped breakfast. There wasn't enough bread anyway. At the door, she turned back one last time. Mama, she said, when I come back tonight, everything will be okay. Renee forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I'll be waiting, she said. Amara lifted Leo into her arms and stepped into the hallway. The stairwell smelled of damp concrete and old cooking oil. Every step echoed like a countdown. Outside, the city was waking up. Buses roared, horns blared, people hurried past her without seeing her. She dropped Leo off with Mrs. Hawkins, the elderly woman who watched him for pennies a day. Then she walked, 14 blocks, past luxury stores she'd never enter. Past cafes charging more for coffee than her family spent on food in a week. Each step took her closer to hope, and closer to destruction. As she walked, her mind replayed her father's voice. Amara, one day people will hear your name and stop to listen. Daddy, I'm just a kid, she had laughed. You're not just a kid, he had replied. You're a light, and lights don't disappear just because the world is dark. Her throat tightened. She had never entered a corporate building before. She had never spoken to a CEO. She had never asked anyone powerful for anything in her life. But today, she had no choice. When she finally reached the towering glass building, it looked like it touched the clouds. Metal, marble, money. She stood at the entrance, clutching her envelope so tightly that her fingers went numb. People brushed past her like she was invisible. She hesitated, then forced herself through the revolving door. The cold air hit her instantly, the smell of expensive perfume. The echo of heels, the low murmur of wealth, and then the beginning of the end. Amara walked into that building believing in the goodness her father had taught her. She had no idea that within hours she would be humiliated before strangers and that her life would change forever. The moment Amara stepped fully into the lobby, she felt it, the weight of a world that was not built for her. The air itself felt different, cooler, sharper, filled with whispers of money and importance. The ceiling soared miles above her head, a massive chandelier glittering like frozen stars. Polished marble floors reflected the rushed steps of executives who moved as if time itself bowed to them. No one slowed down. No one noticed her, except the security guard. He looked her up and down with open suspicion. Hey, he barked. Where do you think you're going? Amara startled. Her heart jumped into her throat. I need to see someone from the investment department, she said, gripping her envelope. It's very important. My father. You got an appointment? He cut in. No, sir, but then you don't belong here, he said flatly. This ain't a charity center. A few people nearby slowed just enough to stare, then continued walking. Amara felt her face burn. My father invested here, she said more firmly. I have the documents. She held up the envelope with both hands like an offering. The guard snorted. Yeah, and my cousin owns the moon. Move along before you cause trouble, kid. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Just then, a sharply dressed woman in heels approached, irritation written across her face. What's the delay? She asked. The guard jerked his thumb at Amara. This one's making noise. The woman looked at Amara like she was an inconvenience. What do you want? She asked. Amara lifted her documents again. I need help. My mother is sick. My father invested here before he died. I was told to come. The woman sighed loudly. Security, take her to reception. If she doesn't have a registered meeting, escort her out. The word out hit like a slap. The guard grabbed Amara's arm. Wait, please, Amara cried. Just 5 minutes, just let me talk to someone, anyone. She twisted, trying to pull free. The guard's grip tightened painfully. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Then a sudden ripple moved through the lobby. Whispers surged like a tide. People straightened. Phones disappeared into pockets. Eyes turned toward the private elevators. The CEO had arrived. She walked in surrounded by assistants, her expression unreadable, her presence freezing the air around her. Power moved with her. Fear followed. The guard instinctively released Amara and stepped back. Amara didn't know who the woman was yet, but her soul did. The elegantly dressed woman stopped when she noticed the crying girl. What's going on here? The CEO asked coolly. The guard pointed. She's trespassing, claims she's got business with the company. Amara's chest tightened. This was her only chance. Summoning every ounce of courage left inside her, she stepped forward. My father's name was Daniel Johnson, she said quickly. He invested everything he had into your company. He said if anything ever happened to him, you would take care of us. The CEO studied her face with mild annoyance. I don't recall that name, she replied. He worked construction, Amara added desperately. He cleaned offices at night too. He saved for years. The CEO raised her hand. Silence snapped into place. I don't conduct business in my lobby, she said, and I certainly don't conduct it with children without proper channels. But my mother is dying, Amara blurted out. She needs surgery tomorrow, the hospital, the CEO exhaled sharply through her nose. Security, she said. They moved instantly. Wait. Amara cried, stepping in front of them. Please, just look at the papers, just once. In her desperation, she reached forward, trying to place the envelope into the CEO's hands. The CEO recoiled as though Amara had tried to contaminate her. Then came the moment that would echo across two lives forever. Amara's hand trembled. The documents slipped. They scattered across the marble floor. Gasps filled the room, and the humiliation began. As Amara dropped to her knees to gather the papers, she felt the eyes. Hundreds of them, watching, judging, some with curiosity, some with disgust, some with quiet satisfaction. She could barely breathe. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, she whispered over and over as she scrambled. The CEO's voice cut through the air. Look at you, she said coldly. On your knees, how fitting. Amara froze, then slowly looked up. The CEO's eyes held no warmth. People like you always end up in the same position, the CEO continued, begging for things you didn't earn. I didn't come to beg, Amara whispered. I came for what my father earned. That earned a low, humorless laugh. You think because your father made a tiny investment, you're entitled to me? The CEO said. That's cute. My father believed in you, Amara said through tears. He said you were honorable. The CEO leaned down slightly. Then your father was a fool. The words sliced deep. Harder than hunger, harder than grief, harder than poverty, harder than fear. People like you, the CEO continued, straightening again, will always stay where you started, and when you fall, you drag your children down with you. That's just the natural order. A man near the elevator winced. A woman lowered her eyes. No one spoke. No one intervened. The guards stepped forward again. Amara clutched the documents to her chest. My mother will die without help, she said quietly. If you let her die. It'll be on your conscience forever. That was when the CEO's patience finally shattered. Get this girl out of my sight, she snapped, and don't let her step foot in here again. The guard seized Amara's arm with force. She cried out as pain shot up her shoulder. Please, she screamed. I'll work, I'll clean, I'll do anything. Her voice cracked with desperation. But the CEO had already turned away. To her, the girl no longer existed. As Amara was dragged across the lobby, her gaze searched every face. Anyone, someone, a hand, a word, a sign of mercy, but all she saw were turned backs and silent stares. Her shoes scraped against the marble. Tears blurred her vision. Her voice grew hoarse from screaming. My mother will die, she sobbed. Please, someone help her. No one moved. The revolving doors loomed closer. Each step felt like the world pushing her out, pushing her back into sickness, into death, into nothing. Then let her go. The same calm voice as in part one sliced through the chaos. The grip on Amara's arm loosened. She stumbled and fell to her knees once more. But this time, a pair of steady hands lifted her, wrapped around her, shielded her. For the first time inside that cold palace of power, she felt human again. Amara clung to the stranger's coat, sobbing uncontrollably. I tried, she cried. I tried so hard. The stranger stroked her hair gently. I know, the woman whispered. You were very brave. Behind them, the CEO turned slowly, her anger rising. This is highly inappropriate, she snapped. You are interfering with company protocol. The stranger stood and turned, her certainty unshaken. What you called protocol, she said calmly, looked a lot like cruelty. The CEO's eyes narrowed. And you are, she demanded. A witness, the woman replied simply. The CEO scoffed. Then witness this. People like that girl will never belong in places like this. The stranger glanced down at Amara, then back up with quiet fire burning in her eyes. That depends, she said softly, on who she truly belongs to. Confusion flashed across the CEO's face, and fear just for a moment, but she masked it quickly. I don't have time for this nonsense, the CEO said. Security, resume. The guards hesitated. For the first time, they weren't sure who held the real authority anymore. In that moment, standing between a broken child and a woman who ruled with pride, the truth stood ready to be revealed. But no one in that room yet understood that the real power had just walked in. The entire lobby stood suspended in a fragile, trembling stillness. The towering glass walls, the glittering marble floor, the wealth that breathed through the building, none of it mattered now. Every eye was locked on the woman standing between the crying black girl and the furious white CEO. The stranger's posture was straight, calm, unyielding. The CEO's was rigid with restrained fury. "You are obstructing my business," the CEO said sharply. "Step aside." The stranger didn't move. Instead, she gently guided Amara behind her, placing one protective hand in front of the girl, an unspoken shield. "I've seen enough," the woman said quietly, "and I won't step aside for injustice." The CEO scoffed. "You're making a mistake. Do you have any idea who I am?" "Yes," the stranger replied immediately. "I do." That answer unsettled the CEO more than she expected. The whispers in the lobby grew louder. "I think that's Alina Whitmore. That can't be right. What would she be doing here?" Amara peeked from behind the woman's coat, her swollen eyes confused and frightened. Who are you?" Amara whispered. The woman glanced down at her with a soft, reassuring smile. "Someone who understands what it means to lose a father," she said gently. Amara's breath caught. The CEO folded her arms. "Security," she said, her voice shaking with contained anger. "If you don't remove both of them right now, I will personally see to your termination." The guards exchanged uneasy looks. They had already seen the reaction ripple through the crowd. They had already heard the murmurs. Fear had entered the room, but not from the girl anymore, from the woman protecting her. Slowly, the stranger turned her gaze back to the CEO. "Yesterday," she said calmly, "you rejected a meeting with a black investor." The CEO's eyes flickered. "That's confidential company information," she snapped. "You shouldn't speak on matters you don't understand." "Oh, I understand it perfectly," the woman replied. "You refused to shake her hand, you dismissed her proposal without reading it, you humiliated her in front of your board." The CEO took one step closer. "You weren't in that room," she hissed. The woman smiled faintly. "Oh," she said. "But I was." A hush fell over the room. Amara's heart began to race. The woman continued, her voice steady and piercing. "That investor was not some desperate woman looking for charity," she said. "She was a majority shareholder acting on behalf of her late husband's estate." The CEO's breath hitched. "One of your early backers," the stranger added quietly. "One of the men who helped build this company when no one else believed in you." The room exploded into murmurs. The CEO's face lost its color. "That's impossible," she snapped. "I remember every major investor." "Then remember this name," the woman said. She turned slowly and pointed toward Amara. "Daniel Johnson." Amara froze. Her knees went weak. The CEO staggered back half a step. "No," she whispered. The stranger's voice dropped into something dangerously calm. "You called him a nobody," she said. "You dismissed his daughter. You mock the poor and the powerless without ever asking whose shoulders you're standing on." The CEO's throat tightened. "That's not," she tried to protest, but the woman raised her hand. "And then," she continued, "you refused to shake the hand of his widow yesterday, not because of business, not because of logic, but because of who she was." The silence in the lobby was suffocating. Amara's mind reeled. My mama," she whispered. The stranger turned and met her eyes tenderly. "Yes, sweetheart," she said. "Your mother?" Amara covered her mouth in shock as a sob escaped her. "She didn't tell me she went there," Amara whispered. "She didn't want to worry you," the woman replied softly. "She believed in dignity." The woman's gaze snapped back to the CEO with sudden steel. "And you stripped her of it." The CEO's lips trembled. "You don't have the authority to accuse me like this," she said shakily. "Who exactly do you think you are?" For the first time since her arrival, the stranger's smile vanished. She took one deliberate step forward. "My name," she said clearly, "is Alina Whitmore." The lobby erupted, gasps, shouts, disbelief. "That's the founder of Whitmore Global, the woman who owns 13 corporations. She's the largest external stakeholder in this company." The CEO's face drained of blood. "No," she whispered. Alina Whitmore raised her chin. "And as of last night," she said, "I became the legal guardian of Renee Johnson." Amara froze. "And by extension," Alina finished, "of this child." The words hit like thunder. The CEO's knees visibly trembled. You can't do this," she stammered. "This is absurd." "No," Alina said softly. "What's absurd is that you thought your power came from your title." She turned slightly to address the stunned crowd. "Power," she said, "comes from character, and today this little girl showed more courage than anyone in this room." Amara shook as Alina gently pulled her closer. "You're safe now," Alina whispered. The CEO staggered backward. But she assaulted my space," she tried weakly. "She caused a scene." "You caused the scene," Alina cut in sharply. "You humiliated a grieving child who came to you with nothing but faith in your company." The CEO's vision blurred. "What do you want from me?" she whispered. Alina's eyes hardened. "What you should have given her from the beginning," she said. "Respect." Amara looked up at Alina through trembling tears. You really know my mama?" she whispered. Alina squeezed her hand. I sat beside her all night, she said gently. When she collapsed outside the building yesterday after your security removed her. The lobby gasped again. She fainted, Amara cried. Yes, Alina said quietly. From exhaustion, from heartbreak, from fear for you and your brother. Amara's legs gave out. Alina caught her in time. She's at Mercy General now, Alina continued. Under full medical care. Amara sobbed uncontrollably into Alina's arms. She's going to die, she cried. No, Alina whispered firmly. Not today and not tomorrow either. Amara pulled back in shock. Alina met her eyes. The surgery is already approved, she said. Paid in full. The world seemed to tilt. You paid it, Amara whispered. Alina nodded. Because justice doesn't wait for arrogance to apologize. The CEO staggered forward again. You went behind my back, she whispered. Oh no, Alina replied calmly. This was always my move to make. Then Alina turned to the guards. Release the child, she said formally. The guards immediately stepped back. Then she turned to the CEO. And now, Alina said slowly, we discuss your future. The CEO's breath shook. You can't fire me without board approval, she said weakly. Alina smiled faintly. I own 73% of this company, she said. The board answers to me. The lobby erupted. No, the CEO whispered. Alina stepped closer until they stood face to face. You don't represent this company anymore, Alina said quietly. Not in title and not in spirit. The CEO's shoulders collapsed. I built this empire, she whispered. No, Alina replied. People like Daniel Johnson helped you build it. Silence fell. Alina turned to Amara and knelt before her. This world tried to make you feel small, she said gently. But today it learned that even the smallest voice can shake a giant. Amara's tears fell freely. I just wanted my mama to live, she whispered. Alina pulled her into an embrace. And she will, she said, because you never gave up. Behind them, the CEO slowly sank to her knees on the same marble floor where she had moments earlier mocked a child. In a single moment, power shifted, the mighty fell, and a child once cast aside as a nobody became the daughter of a legend. The CEO remained on her knees, the same marble floor, the same crowd, the same building. But now the power had shifted so completely that the air itself felt different. Alina Whitmore stood over her, not with cruelty, not with triumph, but with quiet, unstoppable authority. This company will release an official statement within the hour, Alina said calmly. Your removal will be immediate. Your access to all company systems is revoked, effective now. The former CEO looked up slowly, her eyes hollow. You can't just erase me like this, she whispered. Alina didn't raise her voice. You erased yourself the moment you reduced a grieving child to less than human, she replied. The board members, who had been silently watching from the upper balcony, began stepping forward one by one. None of them met the fallen woman's eyes. One of them cleared his throat. We support Ms. Whitmore's decision. Another added quietly, the company cannot survive a scandal like this. The CEO's breathing became erratic. This company is my life, she said weakly. No, Alina replied. Your life was power, and today power met accountability. Security stepped forward once more. But this time, they weren't there for Amara, they were there for her. Ms. Carter, one of the guards said formally, please come with us. She tried to stand. Her legs failed. Alina watched as the once feared woman was lifted just as roughly as Amara had been dragged moments earlier. The symmetry of justice was unmistakable. Before reaching the doors, the former CEO turned her head one last time. Her eyes met Amara's. For a fraction of a second, fear replaced arrogance. Then she was gone. The revolving doors swallowed her, and just like that, the tyrant fell. Within minutes, news cameras flooded the front of the building. Phone screens lit up across the city. Headlines exploded. CEO fired after racist incident with investor's child. Billion-dollar empire shaken by public humiliation scandal. WHITMORE Global reclaims control after shocking lobby scene. Reporters shouted questions. Employees whispered. Investors panicked. And at the center of it all, a small black girl clinging to the hand of a powerful woman who refused to let her fall. Amara didn't understand most of what was happening. All she knew was this. For the first time since her father died, she wasn't alone. Alina didn't give interviews. She didn't wave. She didn't smile. She walked Amara straight through the chaos into her waiting car. The ride to the hospital felt endless. Amara stared out the window in silence, her heart tangled between terror and fragile hope. What if it's too late? She whispered. Alina glanced at her. It won't be, she said firmly. When they reached Mercy General, doctors were already waiting. Renee had been prepped for surgery. Amara wasn't allowed inside the operating room. The waiting was unbearable. She paced. She cried. She prayed. Hours passed. Each second pressed like a weight on her chest. Then the door opened. The surgeon removed his mask. "Your mother made it," he said gently. "The surgery was successful." Amara collapsed to the floor with a sob that sounded like her soul breaking open. "She's alive," she cried. "She's alive," the doctor smiled. Amara turned and threw herself into Aliner's arms. "You saved her," she sobbed. "You saved my mama." Aliner held her tightly. "No," she whispered. "You did. I only followed your courage." Later that night, Amara sat beside her mother's hospital bed, holding her hand. Renee opened her eyes weakly. "Amara," she whispered. Amara laughed through tears. "You scared me so bad, Mama." Renee blinked slowly. What happened?" Aliner stepped forward gently. "My name is Aliner Whitmore," she said softly. "Your daughter reminded me what it means to be human today." Renee tried to sit up in alarm. "The company, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." Aliner raised her hand. "Hush. You did nothing wrong." Renee's eyes filled with tears. "I went there to protect my children," she whispered. "And you did," Alina replied, "even when they tried to crush you." She then took a slow breath. "And now I'd like to protect you too." Renee hesitated. "What do you mean?" Alina looked at Amara. "I want to take full responsibility for this family," she said. "Education, medical care, housing, everything." Renee shook her head weakly. "We don't want charity." Alina smiled gently. "Neither do I," she replied. "This isn't charity, this is honor." Renee closed her eyes, overwhelmed. Amara whispered, "Mama, it's okay. Daddy would trust her." Renee's tears fell silently. Finally, she nodded. The move happened within days, from a crumbling apartment to a quiet White House with sunlight pouring through wide windows. Amara's brother ran barefoot on green grass for the first time in his life. Renee received world-class medical care. Amara entered a private school where she trembled on the first day, unsure if she belonged. Aliner knelt beside her before she went inside. "They're lucky to have you," she said. "No," Amara whispered. "I'm lucky you found me." Aliner placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Sometimes," she said, "the universe hides diamonds in dust." The trial came swiftly. The world watched the former CEO sit behind glass, her face stripped of filters and lies. Former employees testified. Board members exposed corruption, bias, illegal removals, abuse of authority. Every act of silent cruelty came to light. The verdict was brutal: blacklisted, fined, banned from holding executive office for life. Outside the courthouse, reporters shouted, "Do you regret what you did to the little girl?" She didn't answer, but the silence screamed. One evening, Amara found Aliner standing on the balcony, staring at the city lights. "Do you ever miss being anonymous?" Amara asked. Aliner smiled faintly. "Every day." "Why did you help us?" Amara whispered. "You didn't have to." Aliner turned toward her. "My father once ignored a child who asked him for help," she said softly. "That child didn't survive the winter." Amara's face fell. "I swore I'd never look away again," Aliner finished. "And then you walked into that building." Amara hugged her tightly. "I'm going to be someone who never looks away too," she said with quiet determination. Aliner's eyes glistened. "I already believe you will." Years later, the auditorium was silent, not the kind of silence born from fear, but the kind that comes when hundreds of hearts are leaning forward, waiting to listen. The stage lights shimmered across polished wood and deep blue curtains. Rows upon rows of students, teachers, journalists, and community leaders filled the seats. At center stage stood a young woman in a soft gray suit, poised, confident, unshaken. Her name echoed through the microphone. "Please welcome Amara Johnson." The room erupted in applause, thunderous, unstoppable. Amara stepped forward, her heels steady, her shoulders straight, her eyes glowing with purpose. She scanned the crowd once, nervous for just a breath, then found the familiar face in the front row, Aliner Whitmore, silver hair now softer, eyes still strong, still watching her like a guardian. Amara smiled and began. "When I was 14, Amara said calmly, her voice carrying across the room, "I walked barefoot across broken sidewalks to beg for my mother's life." A hush fell. "I held documents that no one wanted to read. I carried hope that no one wanted to honor. And in a building made of glass and gold, I was told I did not belong." The audience listened, frozen. "I was humiliated, dragged, left to cry alone between people who had everything and chose to feel nothing." Murmurs rippled through the room. "But on that same floor," Amara continued, "a stranger stood between me and cruelty. She didn't ask who I was. She didn't ask what I had. She simply saw that I was human." Her eyes softened. And because of that, my mother lived, my brother grew, and I learned that dignity is stronger than any title. Applause broke out again. Amara took a slow breath. Today, I stand before you as a medical scholar, a community organizer, and the founder of the Daniel Johnson Free Surgery Initiative, a program that saves the lives of families who cannot afford to be ignored. The crowd rose to its feet. Alina's hands trembled as she clapped. Tears filled her eyes, not from pride alone, from purpose fulfilled. Later that evening, Amara stood outside beneath the city lights. Her mother, Renee, walked beside her slowly but steadily now, leaning on a silver cane. Her face carried lines earned through survival, not suffering. Leo, no longer a coughing toddler, ran circles around them in a soccer jersey, laughing wildly. "Mama," he shouted. "She really talks like superheroes?" Renee laughed softly. "That's because she had one." They turned. Alina approached from behind, carrying 3 cups of hot chocolate. "For the hero's family," she said with a smile. Amara accepted her cup. "You always show up when it matters," she said. Alina replied gently, "That's what family does." Renee swallowed hard. "Alina," she whispered, "because of you, my children are alive." Alina shook her head. "Because of you, your daughter never stopped fighting." They embraced, no cameras, no audience, just truth. In a small apartment across the city, far from glass towers and velvet carpets, the former CEO sat alone at a narrow dining table. A single lamp flickered. Her reflection stared back at her from a darkened window. No assistance. No headlines, no power, only memory. She opened her phone, typed one name into the search bar, Amara Johnson. The speech video played. She watched silently, watched the girl she had crushed now command a nation's respect. Her hands shook. For the first time in years, regret entered the room. But it was too late to apologize to a child who no longer needed forgiveness. History had already chosen its hero and its lesson. At night, Amara found Alina on the same balcony where they had once spoken years before. "You okay?" Amara asked. Alina nodded slowly. "I'm just listening to the city." Amara leaned beside her. "You changed everything for us." Alina smiled faintly. "You changed everything for me too." Amara was quiet for a moment. "Do you remember what you told me that day?" she asked. Alina thought. "That power doesn't come from titles," Amara continued. "It comes from character." Alina nodded. Amara looked at her. "I want to be that kind of powerful forever." Alina's voice trembled. "You already are." They stood together under the vast sky, once strangers, now bound by purpose rather than blood. The camera pulls back, from the balcony, from the lights, from the city. It settles on the framed photo inside the living room, a smiling black man with kind eyes, Daniel Johnson, his dream fulfilled, his daughter standing tall, his legacy alive.